Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. And without objection, I would ask that we suspend the rules to provide this council meeting be held via video and teleconference in accordance with Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-48, and that participation of no less than 4 council members on this conference call constitutes a quorum for purposes of conducting this meeting pursuant to the Open Meetings Act. Additionally, due to the current state of emergency and without objection, I would like to suspend the rules to allow public comment germane to any agenda item or city business to be provided via Zoom teleconference during communications from citizens at the following telephone number: 929-205-6099. I'll read that again: 929-205-6099. When prompted, residents should enter the following meeting number: 441-199-775 and press pound. Again, that's 441-199-775 and press pound. You do not need to enter a passcode. Procedurally, in order to facilitate an orderly meeting by video and teleconferencing, I ask that if any of my colleagues want the floor to make or second a motion, please unmute yourself and ask for the floor. This will allow me to identify you. In case 2 council members speak over one another, the chair will make the call. Also, council members are reminded to have their devices on mute when not talking to limit interference and refrain from watching the meeting online due to the slight broadcast delay. All votes of the city council tonight will be by roll call, conducted by the city clerk. Is there any objection to proceeding in the manner that I have just outlined? Hearing no objection, I will recite the Pledge of Allegiance on behalf of the City Council so it can be heard by everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Riska, would you please proceed by reciting the invocation for us tonight?
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Riska. Can we please now have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor,
Participating.
Mrs. Sarasky,
Participating.
Mrs. Koski,
Participating.
Mr. Radke,
Participating.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Participating.
Mr. Yanez,
Participating.
Mrs. Yarko.
Participating.
Thank you very much, Ms. Riska. Thank you, Council. We need approval of tonight's agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski, please proceed.
move to approve the agenda.
Mayor Taylor?
Do we have a, Mrs. Schmidt, you've asked for the floor, but do we have a second to the motion?
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zarko.
move to support the motion.
Okay, the motion to approve the agenda has been moved and supported. Ms. Schmidt, any discussion?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yes, I'd like to remove consent agenda item 6I and make it consideration item 7A, please.
Okay, consideration item 7A is now on the agenda. It was previously 6I from the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve the agenda? Hearing none, the motion to approve the agenda has been moved and supported. Ms. Riska, could we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Yanez,
Yes.
Mrs. Yarko,
Yes.
Mrs. Koski,
Yes.
Mr. Radke,
Yes.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarasky,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Agenda is approved. Next item on our agenda is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. And Mr. Vanderpool, before you get started, I would just ask all members of the council and anyone else on the call to please make sure to mute yourself. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor. As I've done in the last couple of meetings, I'd like to start out by providing an update on the COVID-19 emergency from a Sterling Heights perspective. First, we've had a number of people ask, how is the data looking for Sterling Heights when we drill down? On the news, we hear about statewide data, of course, nationwide data, and some countywide data, but there's little information about how exactly individual communities are affected. So I thought this evening I would provide an update on that information. So let me begin with the chart that I'm about to pull up. Okay, so first, this is the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases throughout Macomb County by community. So there's been over a total of 4,000 cases countywide. And you can see that Sterling Heights, not surprisingly, since we're the second largest county-wide, is just behind the city of Warren at 713 cases. Now, moving on to the next set of data, when we look at that same data but break it down per capita, which is a more logical comparative analysis, you can see that on a per capita basis, when you look at the number of COVID cases in Macomb County, Sterling Heights is in about the 8th position. So we've heard that there's hot spots in the county, and there are. Starting out, it was in the Centerline, Roseville area, and so Sterling Heights has not been necessarily a hot spot when you look at the comparative data. So moving on to the next set of data, let me draw attention to this third chart. This is the number of confirmed COVID-19 deaths in Macomb County. And before I go any further, on behalf of the mayor and the city council, of course, we offer our condolences and thoughts and prayers for all the residents who have the families who have suffered the loss of a loved one through the COVID-19 crisis. Our hearts and prayers are with you. When you look at the data for deaths, again, we are just behind the city of Warren. Again, not surprising knowing we're the second largest. There have been over 400 deaths countywide. So when we again take a look at that same data on a per capita basis, again, it looks very similar to the total COVID cases. So we would rank, comparatively speaking, on a per capita basis in the 8th spot here countywide. So moving on to the next set of data, the important thing through the stay home, stay safe directive from the governor is that this is supposed to result in fewer cases, obviously. And when we look at the data countywide for for Sterling Heights, since April 3rd, we're seeing some good trends here. First, obviously, there was a significant spike on the 4th and some downward trending, then another spike on April 8th, but nowhere near the spike on April 4th. So we're seeing smaller spikes, and then another downward trend, and then another spike on the 16th, again, a little smaller than the spike on the 4th, and then a significant downward trend over the past few days, a minor trend upward, but negligible on the 20th. So this is good data. This is exactly what the governor is showing that we're seeing throughout the metropolitan area in Michigan. So this is what we want to continue to see for Sterling Heights as well. And when we look at just a couple of last graphs here, this again would be the death rate for the city of Sterling Heights. At 72 deaths, that means we were averaging over 2 a day. Obviously we want to see smaller numbers. When you look at the the data, and we just started getting the death data from the county a few days ago, so we don't have a lot of historical data here. But the important note looking at this graph is the downward trend. So we want to continue to see that, and we will continue to watch that data very carefully. So moving on, city administration is developing a plan to reopen, excuse me, city facilities in a limited capacity once the governor's executive order enables such. We believe that there'll be some relaxing of the order once the current one expires on April 30th. So it's logical to think that there could be some limited reopenings beginning in early May to mid-May. But we'll see how the data trends and what the governor's ultimate decision is in concert with the state legislature and so on. There's going to be a lot that happens over the next week and a half. So the limited reopening will include all city facilities with the exception of the senior center, obviously, which will remain closed, knowing that seniors are the most vulnerable to the COVID-19 virus. So we don't have a definitive date now, but suffice it to say that it could be 60, 90 days before the senior center would be in a reopening position. The reopening plan that's currently being developed by city administration is centered on ensuring the safety of employees and certainly the general public that would be coming into our facilities. So we're going to have much more information in the next week and a half, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with the city council on that plan and eventually sharing it with the public once we're ready and we have a clear direction from the state. And also on the city council agenda this evening, on the consent agenda, is our two resolutions pertaining to the crisis at hand, each requesting that the state and the county share a portion of the CARES Act funding that they're receiving to address the emergency expenditures with local communities throughout the state, and in case of the county, in Macomb County. The legislation was passed with that sharing in mind. So we want to make sure that the state and the county knows that we're at their disposal to partner with them and collaborate on developing the means and methods to distribute this funding. So that is my update on the COVID crisis for this evening. Much more to come. Individuals can still go to our website to get more information on the COVID crisis, and there's a plethora of city resources on there, especially related to our e-government options. Those of you who still need to do business with the city, you can continue to do that through our e-government opportunities. I also wanted to provide an update on the census. That is really good news, and we appreciate the community's continued support of the census efforts in Sterling Heights. And I'm pleased to report that Sterling Heights is in the top tier of communities nationwide with a high response rate of 71% already completion of the online census form. So far, that's really been the only way you can participate in the census is doing it online, and you can still do it online. You simply go to census2020.gov and you can fill out your form there. It's very easy. It just takes a matter of minutes. There's 9 questions. It's really easy. For those who are not able to do it online, later this month and into early May, you'll be receiving a hard copy, and we strongly encourage you to complete the hard copy form if you're not able to complete the online form. If you need assistance completing the questionnaire, you can call the city's census hotline at 586-446-2757, Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 o'clock. Based on census counts, city residents receive millions of dollars in funding for road improvements, senior services, school lunch programs, student loans, unemployment services, and the list goes on and on. There's a long list, and you can go to our census web page to learn more about the programs that are funded based on per capita, and thus the importance for having a very accurate census count. So thank you to those who have completed it already, and we look forward to as many residents as possible completing the census. And the last item on my report this evening is a road update. Believe it or not, all of our road projects are on schedule. Of course, we're receiving very few complaints right now because there's very little traffic on the roads, but know that the projects are going on. For example, there's road work on 14 Mile Road between Ryan and DeQuinder. This is sort of leftover punch list item work, landscaping, grading, and so on. That's going to be completed over the ensuing weeks. And then the major projects will be starting up over the summer months. For example, 18 Mile Road resurfacing between Ryan and DeQuinder will be starting in July. Hayes Road resurfacing between 14 Mile and Moravian will be starting in August. The much anticipated Shaner Road completion, which is a resurfacing between the Plumbrook Drain and the Clinton River Road, actually just north of Clinton River Road, that'll start in August. And then Utica Road resurfacing between Hayes and Shaner will be starting in July. And all of our neighborhood road projects are on schedule to begin next month. So look forward to a very busy construction season once again with approximately $15 million in various road improvements. And residents can go to our Cone Zone site to get the latest information on all of our road work activity. And Mayor, that concludes my report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. I appreciate that update and information. Next item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. Council, is there anyone who would like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
Mayor Taylor.
Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski.
Resolve to adopt the consent agenda minus item 6I, which is now going to be item 7A.
Motion has been made. Is there a council member who would like to make a second?
Support.
Here, Councilman Michael Radke has supported the motion. Motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. It's been moved and supported. Ms. Riska, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Ziarko,
Yes.
Mrs. Kosky,
Yes.
Mr. Radke,
Yes.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarowski,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Yanez.
Yes.
Great, thank you, Ms. Riska. Motion carries 7-0. Next item on our agenda is consideration item 7A, which is consent agenda item 6I. Mrs. Schmidt, would you like to make a motion? Ms. Schmidt, please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yes, I'd like to make a motion. Resolve to approve the payment to Macomb County Department of Roads for traffic signal improvements at the intersection of Shaner and Moravian Drive in the amount of $50,000.
Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Zarko.
Support.
Motion is moved and supported. Give you the floor, Councilwoman Schmidt, to have any discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and my colleagues for indulging me on pulling this item tonight. It's really just to do a happy dance of probably 12 to 15 years of fighting for this intersection improvement. I've lived here over 25 years, and that intersection has terrified me ever since I've moved in. So I'm very, very excited to have this final piece of that intersection puzzle put into place. And through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, just wondering if you have a date. I can be patient.
Mr.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Schmidt, well, first, thank you for your relentless interest in this project over the last couple of years. It's nice that it's nearing completion. We're very close now. I do not have a definitive timeline, but I can tell you this: it will be done this construction season. We're hoping early on. It's a relatively easy project. I'll give you just a few of the details. There's going to be new left-hand turn signals for traffic coming off of Moravian that's going southbound, and traffic going northbound off of Moravian. So those will be the new signals that you'll see. Well, actually, all the signals will be replaced. They will not be mast arms, so the construction will go pretty quickly. The lead time for ordering is not significant because most of the project will be done in-house by the county. Some enhancements, in addition to the left-hand turn signals and the left-hand turn lanes that have been constructed, is that there'll be the street sign, the street name sign will be lit, so it'll be very visible, both Shaner and Moravian, which is a nice enhancement. In addition, the pedestrian crossings will be upgraded to include a countdown for pedestrians. So that's obviously a significant safety enhancement. The total project cost is about $200,000, and our share of it's $50,000. So we look forward to getting it done. As soon as I have a construction start date, I'll be sure to pass that on to City Council.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is actually an agreement that was signed by Mayor Nadi. So this has been in the works for a long time. And then the bottom fell out of the economy in '08 and things were put on the back burner. So this has been a long time coming, and I truly, truly appreciate everybody's hard work at getting this done. And I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Council, anyone else on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Kosky.
I have a question through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool. Reading the backup material on that, because we didn't pay 100% for that light, does that mean that the county has the right, if at a later date they decide to turn that off, that they could do it?
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Kosky, it's a very good question. I don't have the answer to your question, but I will get back to you. My intuitive response is that they would be able to change the signalization if they so chose in the future, but it would have to be based on scientific data. In other words, traffic counts, and they refer to them as warrants. And there would have to be a significant change in traffic volume at that intersection to warrant any sort of change whatsoever. So I would highly doubt it, but it's possible, and I'll get you more detailed information.
Well, the reason that I asked is I was thinking back on Rhine Road, how the county decided to change the lights at the half miles, turn them into blinkers, turn them off when they felt that they weren't needed to keep the traffic flowing. And I was just wondering if they had that kind of power for that intersection, because that light is really needed there.
Yeah, and my answer is I'm afraid they do, but I would want to confirm that, and I will report back to you and the council.
Just tell them that's our light, we'll control it.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kosky. Council, is there anyone else with any discussion? Hearing nobody. Ms. Riska, we need a roll call.
Mrs. Kosky,
Yes,
Mr. Radke,
Yes.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarowski,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Yanez,
Yes.
and Mrs. Yarko.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Riska. Motion carries 7-0. That concludes that portion of our agenda. And just for the record, I don't believe there's any on the call that would participate under communications from citizens, but the next item on our agenda is communications from citizens. And again, for the record, we are receiving communications from citizens via telephone conferencing tonight, and all members of the public are muted. And I don't believe any are actually on the call, but those remaining on the call who wish to participate, if anybody jumps on in the next 30 seconds, will be recognized in turn and asked whether that person has a comment. And if you wish to participate in this portion of the meeting, please press *9, which will notify me that your hand is raised and that you desire to speak. And when prompted, say your name and I'll allow you 4 minutes to address the city council. And please be advised that there may be delays, given that there aren't any, and certainly not an excessive number of people on the call tonight. 4 minutes would be more than enough, I think, without any objection from my colleagues. So I'm going to check one more time and see, and I'm seeing that we have no members of the on the Zoom call tonight. So with that, we will have no communications from citizens. And I will move on to the next item on our agenda tonight, which is reports from city administration and city council. Mr. Vanderpool, any reports tonight or any follow-up?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Koszybski, anything for tonight?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Koszybski. Council, any reports, new business, unfinished business, anything you'd like to comment on? Going once, going twice. Okay, no council member participation. I do have an item I'd like to bring up, and I can't remember whether this was brought up formally and whether we got a report on this or not. But the issue of signature requirement for getting on the ballot for the city council elections. My understanding is that the charter provision provides that we need to get 1% of the registered voters' signatures. And speaking with Councilman Radke, Councilwoman Liz Sarowski, and others throughout the last year or two, I believe there is a sense on council that maybe there's a reason to relax that requirement, and not just because of the COVID-19 situation we're facing right now, but really it's a pretty excessive requirement to get 850 signatures, and we're, I believe, among the highest, probably the highest city in the entire state of Michigan in terms of signature requirement. So what I would like to do is ask the city administration, is it possible that you could bring a report? And I see you there, Liz, but just please keep yourself on mute until I call on you, okay? Is it possible that we can get a report? And I don't know if we have gotten a report. Mr. Vanderpool, have you provided us in the past with a report of what other cities' signature requirements are? I know we got something about the 2-year and 4-year terms recently, but has that been something that's been prepared?
Mayor, I know we have provided some information in the past, but it's been a while and I'd have to refresh my memory on it. So let me look and see what we have, and I can respond, provide you a better response.
Okay, and if we wanted to get something on either the August or November ballot in order to have a charter amendment, is that something that we still have enough time to do? Do you know what the timing requirements are for that?
I would defer to the city attorney, but you do have sufficient time to do that.
Mr. Koszybski?
I agree with Mr. Vanderpool. There is enough time to put something together, but a decision will have to be made in the next month or so.
Okay. If it's not too much trouble, I think what I'd like is just some sort of some background in terms of what other cities are doing, what other comparable cities in the state of Michigan are doing. But understanding that time is of the essence, and without any objection from my colleagues, and I'll give the floor to anybody else who wants to weigh in on this, I think something in the neighborhood of about half of what we're doing would be reasonable. I'm personally not necessarily in favor of just paying $100 or some other higher amount, like other townships are able to do. But I think a signature requirement in the 400 range would seem reasonable. And I think there's a state statute that's on point here. If you don't have a charter provision, what a city of our size would be required to get. So that's a number I'm throwing out there, but I think we should if not at the next council meeting, at least 2 from now, have this on the agenda. And I'll open it up to anybody on the council, and then I'll start with you, Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, for any thoughts you might have about that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yes, I do think that we need to at least get the information from the other cities and what the community and the state requires of our other cities. But the thing that always, it's very hard to get all those signatures, and we know people, we've been out doing it as council people, and it's hard for us. It's not, it's a very high burden. I believe it's an unfair burden, and it does favor the council members, but I don't think that it favors the city as a whole. And so I think that it's time that we can at least allow the residents to weigh in on this, and they make the decisions. So that's the way I think. I am very much in favor of having this revisited. And so I thank you for bringing that up, Mayor Taylor.
Oops, sorry. I was on mute. So thank you, Ms. Sarowski. Anyone else, council, any objection or any comments or thoughts on that? Mr. Radke.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you bringing this up. I recently had a long conversation with the Michigan Municipal League about this topic, and I was informed by them in no uncertain terms that we have the highest signature requirement in the state by more than double. That they believe that the closest signature requirement to us is 350 or 400. They had to double check their records, but they have no other signature requirement that high for city council in the state. Not Detroit, not Grand Rapids, not Flint, not anywhere else. So I am fully in favor of dropping it to 350 or 400 to be in line with the other communities. I think it would be better for people running for council in general, because it's a burden for us, but it's almost impossible for the average person to really collect 1,000 signatures to make sure you make the ballot here in Sterling Heights. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. I look forward to the report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else?
Mayor
Ms.
Taylor,
Sarko. Go ahead, Ms. Sarko.
you know, I've been through 10 elections, and I'm not going to say that it's easy to get 1,000 signatures, but I know what, by charter I had to do. I would be interested, and I'll listen to whatever is brought forward, but I'm not sure that what I'm hearing tonight, I would agree with the numbers. And I'll tell you why is I think the basis for putting the effort into getting the signatures was always so that we could save the money of a primary. And this is, you see in other cities, because you pay a certain amount to get your name on the ballot, what it costs a city to put that primary in place. And it's upwards of $70,000. So if this is my responsibility, if I want to have my name on the ballot, I know what my responsibility is and the hard work that goes into doing it. Sure, everybody would like to have less signatures, to get to have their name on the ballot, but I'd have to listen to the numbers before I actually, agreed with how it was put on the ballot. So, and definitely that's the way it would have to be decided, is by the residents of the city. Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Zarko. Ms. Koski.
I've been through 14 elections. It used to be easy to get signatures. We used to be able to go to the grocery store. We could get hundreds of signatures in a weekend. It's not that way anymore. We don't know what's going to happen with this COVID-19. They're saying that next year it could be worse. If that happens, we're not going to be able to get any signatures. So I think it's about time that we look at this very seriously. And if you want signatures, go for maybe 100. Charge a fee, the cost of whatever we can say our city clerk has to go through to get your name on the ballot. $500 fee, 100 signatures. But I think we need to be realistic, because what we're dealing with now, we don't know what it's going to be like next year. We don't know what it's going to be like this fall. So we want people on the ballot. I think we need to change our way and look at it very seriously and make some thoughtful decisions here. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Koski. Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you. I am open to listening to any information that we bring forward. I am absolutely not in favor of just paying a fee to get your name on the ballot. I said that I think that brings in a lot of other things to play into an election, and it kind of muddies the water somewhat. So I will listen to reducing numbers depending on what it is, but I would not ever be in favor of straight handing over money for, in lieu of signatures. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Anyone else on the signature issue? If not, Mr. Vanderpool, I think you've got clear direction to at least bring us, hopefully, I guess, why don't we say it this way? If you guys could let us know when we will need to make a decision by to get it onto the November ballot at a minimum, and possibly the August ballot. Although personally, I think it's better to put things on the November ballot. But if you could let us know when our deadline is and what the procedures are, and then any information you can provide. I know that a lot of our focus is on important things with the coronavirus response from the city right now, but any information you can give us, maybe it sounds like Mr. Radke's already talked to the MML. I don't think you need to do a whole lot to confirm that we have the highest signature requirement, even higher than the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan. So that would be helpful. And then we can hopefully in the next council meeting or one after that, start talking about the logistics of getting this on the ballot and what a question would look like, and frankly, how many required signatures there would be. So you need any information on that, Mr. Vanderpool?
No, Mayor, I think the direction quite clear.
Okay, very good. All right. With no further discussion under reports, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zarko.
move to adjourn.
Mayor
Support.
Taylor?
It's been moved and supported. Thank you, Mrs. Schmidt. Ms. Driscoll,
Sorry.
we need a roll call vote.
Mr. Radke,
Yes.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mrs. Sarowski,
Yes.
Mayor Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Yanes,
Yes.
Mrs. Yarko,
Yes.
and Mrs. Koski.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the meeting tonight. This meeting is adjourned. Stay safe.